Hi, Crystal. Can you help me understand what happened to Hayden?
I am not talking to you.
It just stuns me that somehow we're allowing this to continue.
They just billed us for nothing.
I'm Susanna Frame in Seattle. We're part of a network of top investigative journalists across the country. Stations bringing you stories uncovering corruption, waste, and abuse of power. It doesn't matter where you live. This is the kind of journalism you'll want to see. We begin with a heart-wrenching story about a little boy in Indiana.
I'm Bob Siegel in Indianapolis, where we've been reporting on the disappearance of a little boy. Hayden Manis was missing for about 4 years before anyone notified police. Now we've discovered new details. Sources close to the investigation tell me a woman who lived with Hayden told police the boy is dead, and she knows what happened to his body. 4-year-old Hayden Manis, missing since 2020. His family looking for answers.
Oh, God.
Before Hayden vanished, he lived in this house with his father, Dustin Manis, and his father's girlfriend, Crystal Hall. Investigators searched the house last September when they first learned of Hayden's disappearance, and they interviewed both Dustin and Crystal. But within a few months, Dustin died of a drug overdose, and Crystal moved out of state.
Hi, Crystal. My name is Bob Siegel. I'm a reporter.
For months, 13 Investigates tried to reach Crystal to see if she could share any insights about Hayden's disappearance. I called, texted, even mailed detailed questions, but she did not respond. So 13 Investigates hopped on a plane, then drove through the Nevada desert.
Pretty sure that's her.
To find Crystal and ask our questions face to face.
Hi, Crystal. I'm Bob Siegel with 13 News. Can you help me understand what happened to Hayden?
I am not talking to you.
Is there anything you can share at all?
No.
Anything?
I cannot.
Do you know what happened to Hayden?
I cannot talk to you about that.
Is Hayden alive or dead?
I cannot talk to you about that.
Is there anything you can say at
I
all?
told you I cannot.
Can you help provide his family with any answers?
I already helped the police. I did what I could. I have information with the case that I am not going to risk divulging.
What information does Crystal not want to divulge? Well, multiple sources close to the investigation have confirmed for 13 News what she told police. Those sources agreed to speak with me as long as they would remain anonymous. They say when investigators came to this home back in the fall to search the house and to talk to Crystal, she told them Hayden Manis is dead, and that she disposed of the boy's body in a trash compactor at a truck stop where she used to work. 13 Investigates has confirmed Crystal worked at several truck stops between 2020 and 2023, including several in Spiceland and this one in Marion.
Our sources told us that you told police that you disposed of his body in a dumpster.
That is not what I told police.
Can you share with us what you did tell police?
I have to go to work. I would like for you to stop this.
Is there a reason that you won't answer any additional questions?
Because I'm not obligated to, and I did work with them.
Just to be clear, you're saying you did not dispose of his dead body?
I did not say that.
You did not tell that to police?
I did not.
Again, multiple sources tell 13 Investigates Crystal did tell police she got rid of Hayden's body. And then
It was awful.
there's this.
They say that you don't forget what a dead body smells like, and I will never forget that smell. It was an awful smell.
More on that smell in a moment. First, I want you to meet Amber Roberts. She worked with both Crystal and Dustin.
We were working the exact same schedule.
They worked together at the Flying J truck stop in Marion. The same year, Hayden disappeared.
Hayden, every time Dustin brought him into Pilot, he was sweet to all of us.
Crystal and Amber were co-managers who ran the truck stop together. Amber says they quickly became friends.
I was actually excited when her and I got put on the same schedule. We got along well. We were both young women, mothers. trying to take care of our kids and our families and run a truck stop.
She was a good coworker?
She was, until she wasn't.
What happened?
I don't know what in her changed, but she just quit showing up for work.
Amber says that was late summer 2020 when both Crystal and Dustin suddenly stopped coming in. And Amber told me just a few weeks later, she noticed something else.
We came out one day and we're just like, man, we can't handle the smell.
It came from over there, just behind the truck stop.
It smelled like death. That's the only way you can describe it. That dumpster area smelled awful the end of the summer that year. And it was the worst I've ever, and I've smelled truck stop trash. Like, it's the worst of the worst trash. And it was beyond what it normally was.
What do you think that smell could have been?
I think it was Hayden.
And just at that time,
I had no idea that that's what it could have been. And I'm like, I didn't know that Hayden was missing. I didn't know to reach out and talk to anybody.
based on interviews conducted by 13 Investigates, the last time Hayden was seen in public was August 30th, 2020. The horrible smell from the trash compactor, Amber says that was just a few weeks later, in September or October of that same year. Amber recalls around that same time, Crystal did return to work a few shifts at the truck stop. And she told 13 Investigates, Crystal then seemed very quiet, stressed, angry, and disheveled.
And then she came in and demanded a transfer after that, out of nowhere.
Have you shared what you know with police?
Yes.
The Delaware County Sheriff's Department tells 13 News it will not discuss sensitive details about an ongoing investigation. Neither will the Delaware County prosecutor.
This is an active, open investigation. I don't want to taint that.
I asked him directly, did Crystal Hall tell investigators she disposed of Hayden's body? Is that true?
I don't want to get into the contents of her various statements to the police. I don't want to confirm or deny that.
Disposing of a body in a dumpster. Is that a crime?
That is a crime.
13 News legal analyst Katie Jackson-Lindsay says failing to report a dead body in Indiana is a misdemeanor. And she says what reportedly happened to Hayden's body could be even more serious than that.
There's a crime on the books called abuse of a corpse. And so putting a corpse into a trash compactor would be considered mutilating that corpse. And that is a crime. That's a felony crime in the state of Indiana.
If someone confessed to doing that, why wouldn't they already be charged?
Law enforcement cannot take a suspect's confession alone as evidence of a crime. The police can't just go out and charge that person. There has to be some other evidence of the offense.
We know detectives did remove items from the house where Hayden lived with Crystal and Dustin, including a section of flooring from a closet. But whether that evidence points to a crime or leads to any arrest is uncertain. So far, it has not.
I love you, Cookie.
So, some of the mystery surrounding this little boy continues, and the question, what happened to Hayden, still not fully answered.
The only thing I know with absolute certainty in this investigation, after all this time, is that I have not seen Hayden Manis alive, and I have not seen Hayden Manis' body. I would encourage any and all tips to keep coming in.
And I hope that more people are willing to come forward if they know anything.
Just please, somebody, call the police. In the end, we need to know that he gets justice.
I'm Chris Ingalls in Seattle. We uncover crimes committed inside Washington State's maximum security lockup for violent juveniles. But it's not the young offenders behind these crimes. We'll reveal the employees caught on tape. The investigation coming up.
Sex, drugs, and contraband. Our next investigation exposes the chaos inside Washington State's lockup for violent juveniles. We found state employees are masterminding the illegal activity.
This woman, walking in the distance, has a special delivery. The hooded woman steps up to the gate, rings the intercom, and announces she has a DoorDash delivery. You're watching never-before-seen video of one of the more brazen crimes at the Green Hill School. Green Hill is the state's overcrowded detention facility for young violent offenders, males ages 17 to 25. Once inside, the woman hands a food bag to security. Later, a hooded Green Hill employee appears at the security checkpoint, takes the bag, and walks away. 2 weeks later, it happens again. The same woman on foot says she has a DoorDash delivery. But this time, at a second locked entryway, an alert security officer in a control room just off camera is suspicious.
She said she was DoorDash, and she showed me the food, she took it out.
That's when she recognized the woman in a black hat and hood, as she told police in this recorded interview.
I confronted her. I did say Angel, and she looked at me in shock and she said no, and just looked at me, made this weird front face, and again said no.
This time, when security took the food bag, they opened it to find this: 2 burritos filled not only with meat and cheese, but a potent form of marijuana called wax. The drug-filled burritos were for a young offender, and it wasn't DoorDash making the delivery. The hooded woman was a former Green Hill employee who was fired last year.
Right. Ms. Meisner, it's my understanding it's your intent today to enter pleas of guilt to the
Weeks after her arrest in March, in a plea bargain, a Lewis County judge sentenced Angel Marie Meisner to 2 years in prison for smuggling drugs into Green Hill.
What is your plea?
Guilty.
With its school, vocational programs, and intensive counseling, Green Hill is supposed to rehabilitate young offenders.
They're just warehousing them over there. They're not really delivering the rehabilitative services that were the core of this program.
John Braun, the top Republican in the state Senate, says the burrito case highlights the failures at Green Hill.
It just stuns me that somehow we're allowing this to continue.
Consider that this is Meisner's second Green Hill-related conviction in a matter of months. She was among a spate of female employees, at least 6 that we know of, investigated and fired in the past year for improper relationships with Green Hill inmates. Records show some smuggled in contraband like cell phones, shared intimate photos, enabled fights and misconduct, and even videotaped their sex acts with inmates. We obtained these Green Hill surveillance photos of Meisner kissing Robbery Thompson, a 22-year-old serving 40 years for 2 murders. Chehalis police records show she kept him supplied with sex while she worked at Green Hill and drugged burritos after she was fired.
Hello, this is a free call from an incarcerated individual at Washington Corrections Center.
Can't wait to be able to hug you without being scared that I'm going to get caught. I love you.
Recordings captured inmate Thompson's phone conversations with Meisner after she was fired.
I really do think that we can help each other to be better people.
These calls reveal Thompson is having sex with another Green Hill staffer, who police identify as Emily Baker. Meisner forgives him because
you paid attention to me and not just sex or what you can get out of me. The fact that I am actually valued as a human being.
Count 1, tampering with a witness, and count 2, abuse of office. Do you understand the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Emily Baker has pleaded not guilty to a long list of charges involving sex, contraband, and an alleged plot to plant drugs in vape and dab pens on a co-worker suspicious of her relationship with Thompson.
Why is all this happening in there?
That I really can't tell you. I'm not really sure.
Chehalis Police Chief Randy Kaut can't explain it, but he knows it's keeping his detectives busy. The city in which Green Hill is located investigated a record 21 custodial misconduct cases involving employees last year. Detectives say Meisner, Baker, and Michelle Goodman sealed their fate with sex tapes that are now in police hands. These are some of the suggestive or nude photos that at least 3 more employees sent to inmates. And police investigated other staffers like Nicholas Judson, accused of picking up burrito deliveries and handing them over to Robbery Thompson. Judson has pleaded not guilty to smuggling contraband.
You got to scratch your head and say, why does this keep happening? How do we allow this type of behavior to continue to happen in this facility?
Up next, we found companies in Minnesota cheating taxpayers, the federal government, and people desperate for housing, leaving some of them homeless. Now to Minneapolis, where our colleagues have tracked down companies billing Medicaid millions of dollars for housing program services that never happened.
Family. It should mean stability. Home. Not wondering where you'll sleep next.
She keeps asking if we're in a new place.
Ben Gutowski's 7-year-old little girl keeps asking when their family will have a home.
We keep telling her soon. Yeah, I don't know what soon means at this point.
Ben and his wife Haley are living out of ever-changing Airbnbs.
Having to move every month, all of your stuff.
A cycle that started in the fall of 2024 after going to New Way, where they successfully completed treatment for substance use disorder. They'd battled addiction, were in recovery, but essentially homeless.
We've been sober for over a year now, and we're trying to get everything back on track and get into a place.
They signed up with a company called Pristine Health. Pristine claims to provide housing stabilization services, or HSS, a Medicaid-funded program to help the elderly and disabled, including those with substance use disorder, find and maintain housing.
We've been counting on them to find us housing and work on listings and talk to apartments.
But the couple says months passed. They never met anyone from Pristine in person. They were sent no listings to review, went on no apartment tours. They were, basically, ghosted.
Yeah, they didn't do anything.
Then Ben saw stories by Kara 11, exposing companies accused of exploiting the HSS program to commit millions of dollars in fraud.
Sounded unfortunately familiar.
Ben contacted Kara 11 Investigates, and we began working with him to get his HSS records. What we uncovered involves a web of companies and what Ben calls fraud and forgery.
It's supposed to be right there. Supposedly that is my signature.
We found the suspect's signature on a housing consultation plan done by a company called Foundation First, for which they billed Medicaid $174. Ben says his only interaction with Foundation First was a brief phone call.
That's nuts.
Even though, by law, the consultation requires his legal signature.
You're saying it's forged?
Yeah, it has to be.
We started looking into Foundation First and got a surprise. Their listed mailing address on the Secretary of State website is a Woodbury home Kara 11 had already paid a visit. We'd been to the vacant home months ago, looking for another HSS company registered there called Brilliant Minds Services. Our investigation had uncovered evidence suggesting Brilliant Minds was billing taxpayers millions for housing help clients said they never received.
100% scam.
In the wake of that report, DHS suspended payment to Brilliant Minds and a federal fraud investigation was launched. Both companies also list office headquarters here in St. Paul at the Griggs building. Our investigation discovered this place is home to about 24 companies billing Medicaid for housing stabilization services. It also has ties to companies caught up in the Feeding Our Future scandal. Foundation First office has no signage. In an email, its owner, Abdi Fattah Mohammed, denied wrongdoing and initially agreed to meet for an interview, but then backed out, writing, "On the advice of legal counsel, we will not be engaging in further direct communication with you." Back to Ben. That consultation by Foundation First is what greenlighted Pristine Health to begin billing his Medicaid. Billing a lot.
I couldn't tell you what even one of those would be.
The records reveal Pristine Health billed Medicaid 46 different times, each time claiming to have spent 2 hours helping Ben find housing.
That shows you received more than 90 hours of service in about 7 months.
That's crazy. That's mind-blowing.
All told, Pristine Health billed Ben's Medicaid more than $6,000. Taxpayers were also billed double. Records show Pristine charged Medicaid thousands of dollars, claiming to separately help Haley find housing.
They just billed us for nothing.
Yep.
Pristine Health is located on Grand Ave in St. Paul, in the basement of the Oxford Square Shopping Center. They never responded to emailed interview requests, so we paid them a visit.
White piece of paper on the door says it's open at 9 a.m. Doesn't look like anybody's here, even though it's during their listed business hours.
Ben says when he began demanding answers, an owner of Pristine Health, a man named Ahmed Mohammed, met with him.
Didn't have anything, just tried to validate how this whole thing has been playing out and told me this is just how HSS works.
Taxpayers charged, his family left homeless.
Yep.
Federal raids taking place across the Twin Cities metro today, including here at the Griggs building behind me in St. Paul. Federal agents are looking for evidence that taxpayer money that was supposed to help vulnerable Minnesotans find housing was instead stolen.
Computers, documents, boxes of evidence seized, including more than $100,000 in cash.
Federal agents are walking out the door with boxes right now.
Agents from numerous federal and state agencies launched a sweeping series of coordinated search warrant raids at homes and businesses. At one of the raids of a company called Brilliant Minds, we spotted acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson walking out.
Mr. Thompson, can we ask you a question or two? It looks like federal agents are raiding a number of housing stabilization companies. What can you tell us about what's going on?
All I can say is we're doing search warrants.
What's the goal of this investigation, or what are you looking for?
We're investigating fraud and obviously to stop fraud.
The now unsealed search warrant details an investigation into a massive scheme to defraud the Housing Stabilization Services Program by taking advantage of the housing and drug addiction crises. It cites Carol Levin's investigation that exposed companies like Brilliant Minds billing Medicaid for services clients say they never received. Agents also raided the Blaine home of two brothers, Anwar and Assad Adow, who were billing Medicaid millions of dollars through companies called Leo Human Services and Liberty Plus LLC for housing help clients told Carol Levin was completely made up.
Well, I mean, they didn't do nothing for me.
They really didn't do much of anything.
The search warrant details how provider notes done by Leo Human appear to be fake and possibly generated by artificial intelligence. It also describes forged client signatures, something Carol Levin asked Assad Adow about months ago as he walked to his brand new BMW.
We have documentation that shows you provided this record and it's allowing your company to bill for somebody and their name, they didn't sign it. It looks like it was forged, sir.
Nothing was forged, man.
A total of 8 different locations were raided as the federal fraud investigation is clearly heating up.
Obviously, fraud's a huge problem in Minnesota, and hopefully they'll help put a stop to some of it.
I'm Nate Morabito in Charlotte, where a school district has refused to give vulnerable kids around-the-clock access to a potentially life-saving shot when they're at school. Our investigation is coming up.
The school being unwilling to just give a child the basic care it's unreal to me.
It really gets my blood boiling for this family.
They're taking a lot of people that have no criminal record.
Get out! Get out!
Our next story takes us to North Carolina, where our investigative team uncovered a school district refusing to give students life-saving medication that teachers were trained to administer, leaving parents terrified and afraid to send their kids to school.
Dominic D'Amato never wants to revisit the day his son Harrison,
he was 8 months old, literally gray and lifeless,
nearly died while battling the flu. But when you're raising a child with congenital adrenal hyperplasia, all it takes is an infection or a broken bone to send parents right back to that moment.
Sorry.
CAH is a rare genetic disorder that affects the adrenal glands. It requires maintenance medicine multiple times a day. And if something triggers a life-threatening adrenal crisis, demands either a stress dose taken by mouth,
he couldn't stomach the medication, he kept vomiting it,
or an emergency steroid shot in the thigh muscle.
So this is an emergency kit.
That shot,
the medication itself is this white powder,
which his parents always carry with them,
and then you flip it over and draw the medication with the syringe.
Saved Harrison's life then.
Snapped right out of it.
And would do the same if the 6-year-old ever goes into crisis again.
Yeah.
But depending on the day, there's no guarantee he'd get it immediately at school when needed.
That's exactly what we're worried about.
As it stands, Union County Public Schools only allows school nurses to give out this kind of shot.
She's only there 2 days a week.
A problem most school days at Harrison's elementary school.
It's just scary.
And a concern 1 day a week at a different Union County elementary school that Danielle Piazza's 7-year-old son attends.
He could die.
Oliver's mom says in the boy's short life so far, he's already gone into crisis twice outside of school and needed injections both times.
Both incidents were just so scary.
Piazza says school staff are open to getting trained.
They are absolutely willing to do it, and the district is not allowing them.
But Union County Public Schools has told both families no one other than nurses can give the injection. Citing state law, the district's attorney told the parents the shot cannot be delegated to unlicensed staff in the school environment. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services says not only is that not true, no one can tell a registered nurse whether they should or should not delegate their duties. Instead, that decision falls squarely on the school nurse's shoulders and is based on the individual student and application of the North Carolina Board of Nursing decision tree.
Honestly, I think it's fear from the actual syringe.
Hoping it would help their cause, Harrison's family secured a doctor's note urging the district to change its stance, saying this is similar to using an EpiPen for a peanut allergy or glucagon for a child with diabetes, and noting this drug cannot be overdosed, making the risk almost negligible.
It rips my heart apart, knowing that my son could be in severe danger.
Both families have even said they'd sign liability waivers. He has the same thing.
100%.
The D'Amato family is actually twice as likely to see history repeat itself. Harrison's little brother has the same rare disorder. The 3-year-old is going to face the same issue when he gets to school.
Yes, he will.
Which is why their parents are desperate for Union County to make a change now.
Yeah, it would be a great relief.
Despite the state's stance and our questions, a school district spokesperson told us school health leadership decided against allowing other employees to give this shot due to what Union County Public Schools calls a detailed and intricate injection process, adding if there's a health crisis emergency, school administrators and nurses are trained to respond safely and appropriately. These families don't believe the existing response, which is call 911 and wait for EMS to arrive, is enough to save a child's life. Parents with Lincoln County schools and another district near Greensboro tell me they can't believe Union County is putting vulnerable kids in a potential life-threatening position.
They're about to fight.
In the real world, when you get knocked down, it's critical.
1, 2, 3.
You get up again.
He's out.
But Gavin Tenner's family wrestles every day with the reality.
He was my firstborn, so it's like
this 7-year-old can't always bounce back on his own.
It's the heaviest weight in the world.
Instead, he occasionally needs a tag team partner. Thankfully, his Randolph County School has stepped into the ring as a safety net.
Kindergarten teacher, all the assistants, the first grade teacher.
His mom, Natasha, says several others,
the PE teacher, the guidance counselor, the nurse,
are trained to give him this necessary shot in the rare instance he goes into adrenal crisis.
It's so relieving to know that he's taken care of.
But she now knows not every family is this lucky.
The school being unwilling to just give a child the basic care it's unreal to me.
We have to ensure that no patient is lost because they're not doing the right thing.
Dina Matos is the executive director of the CARES Foundation. The national advocacy group educates the public about congenital adrenal hyperplasia.
This should not be happening.
Matos is pushing schools to let unlicensed staff take on the almost no-risk responsibility of giving these necessary injections, telling us those that don't are unfairly singling out a vulnerable population.
It's dangerous and they are discriminating.
Along with Randolph County, Lincoln County Schools currently has 4 students with medical orders for this shot. A spokesperson told us the district has authorized school nurses as well as select trained staff members at the students' respective schools to administer these injections if needed. In response to WCNC Charlotte's discovery, Union County reached out to Lincoln County Schools and Randolph County Schools to inquire about policies and procedures for delegating this shot. A spokesperson told us as UCPS staff is committed to providing a safe and healthy learning environment for students, the district will continue to consult with other North Carolina school districts and evaluate its procedures. Back in Randolph County, with no pushback whatsoever.
I'm very, very grateful for Gavin's school.
Natasha Tenner says Gavin's school district has willingly taken on the responsibility.
It means a lot.
In her eyes, the ultimate champion for his safety.
I'm Andy Judson in Sacramento. Over 180 million people visit zoos and aquariums each year. But the interactive aquarium chain Sequest is under fire nationwide for posing safety risks to both animals and its visitors.
This corporation is run by business people, not animal experts.
At Sequest in Folsom, customers pay to pet feed, even swim with wild animals.
They would just have me do them back to back to back to back to back.
In ABC 10's investigation, over a dozen former employees exposed Sequest management for putting profit first, saying it created dangerous, dirty, and even deadly conditions.
Raise your hand if you saw an animal die at Sequest.
They estimate over 1,000 animals have died since 2018. But under California law, it's perfectly legal.
Unfortunately, right now, with a bunch of the wildlife laws, Sequest wins.
Assemblymember Nick Schultz aims to change that.
Reading about what was happening at Sequest and elsewhere, I really felt motivated that I could carry this bill.
He's introduced AB 892, the Captive Wild Animal Welfare Act.
So this would prohibit direct contact between the public and certain kinds of captive wild animals.
That means no more hand-feeding, petting, or holding certain animals at facilities like Sequest.
Why do you believe stopping these types of interactions is necessary?
Primarily because they're profit-driven.
When profit comes before care, animals suffer. Our reporting has shown that.
If a human being were treated under those conditions, we would call that cruel and unusual punishment.
Yet data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture reveals a troubling trend. Interactions at facilities like Sequest nearly doubled between 2019 and 2021.
I really think that somebody has to be sounding the alarm. You all as investigative journalists have done that on your end. Now it's time for lawmakers to stand up and say we can do better in California.
Similar laws are already in place in 14 other states. If passed in California, it would ban interactions with non-human primates like monkeys, as well as bears, elephants, sloths, otters, kangaroos, wallabies, and certain wild cats, many living at Sequest and Folsom, but not all.
Why not go further to protect more animals at Sequest? For example, fish and reptiles have little to no protection, both state and federally. Shouldn't they be included?
Absolutely. I think we should have more protections for all kinds of animals. My goal is that we view what we've introduced as a baseline. And if we want to build upon that and add more to it, I'm all about it. But this is really where we need the public to be engaged.
The public's input, he says, will ultimately shape this bill.
Really, our goal was to start this conversation. So if anybody watching your program has a feeling one way about it or the other, we want to hear from you.
And advocate for the protection of these animals, Schultz says.
Animals aren't going to be knocking on your door every day asking you to carry a particular bill for them, but it doesn't make it any less right to do. This is your chance right now to help shape public policy in California.
Coming up, we head to the Pacific Northwest, where our investigation found Washington State quietly doing business with ICE, agreements that could be helping agents round up undocumented residents. And that's against state law.
I'm Kristen Goodwillie in Seattle. Our investigation found a state agency was quietly sharing private driver's license and vehicle registration information with ICE. That could be illegal if that information was being used for immigration enforcement.
They're taking a lot of people that have no criminal records.
Jose, who lives in South King County and works in the restaurant industry, has been undocumented for almost 20 years. He's not showing his face because he's terrified by the ICE raids we've all seen.
Get out. Get out.
He wonders if Washington really is a sanctuary state where local agencies aren't supposed to help the federal government deport people.
You can! Pretty sure that there's a lot of agencies that works with them.
He's right. Despite being a sanctuary state, the King 5 investigators found the Department of Licensing, where you get a driver's license or register your car, is sharing private information with Homeland Security, ICE, and Border Patrol.
Is it concerning to you?
I think, not only for me, but the whole community.
Governor, act now! Protests erupted across western Washington in 2018 during the first Trump administration, after legislators came down on the Department of Licensing, or DOL, for violating a state executive order that put undocumented immigrants at risk.
Protect our privacy rights!
DOL was giving the feds access to personal data used to arrest and deport people. State records show after that, DOL canceled many of those agreements or accounts. But a King 5 investigation has found sometime later in 2018, DOL quietly reopened some of them. State records show accounts with ICE, Border Patrol, and 3 other Homeland Security departments are back open, and business is brisk. Since Trump's election in November, the Fed's use of them skyrocketed 188%. Looking just at ICE's account, in November 2024, agents searched for driver and vehicle records about 500 times. This May, that number tripled to more than 1,600 searches.
They should stop. They should stop because it's all about trust.
The Department of Licensing declined our request for an on-camera interview, but in emails they insist they're following state and federal laws. They said an increase could be due to significant variability in monthly searches and because of Trump, that the data crosses 2 presidential administrations with 2 different immigration ideologies. And remember, it is firmly in state policy that DOL's information is not to be used for immigration purposes.
As ICE is ramping up their enforcement actions in our state, the last thing we want is for them to be able to search a treasure trove of information about home addresses.
Jenny Pasquarella is the legal director of the Clemency Project, a nonprofit that represents undocumented immigrants. I reached out to more than a dozen immigration experts who say they had no idea DOL was working with the federal government again.
It is critical that we ensure that that information is walled off so that people don't fear accessing it.
I asked DOL if they were concerned about the increase in the feds looking up their data. In an email, they said anyone using their database must promise they're not using it to deport people. Immigration enforcement can search their database for a person, license plate, address, or vehicle only if they agree to use the info for purposes that are legal in Washington. For instance, investigating a crime like human trafficking or drug smuggling.
Well, look what's happening,
While the federal government considers being undocumented a crime, Washington doesn't. Advocates worry the surge in searches is being used for deportations.
If it's criminal activity, then they should be able to do it through the warrant process.
State Senator Rebecca Saldana is one of the sponsors of a 2018 law, the Keep Washington Working Act. It cemented into law that state agencies are not to cooperate with federal programs that target residents on the basis of immigration or citizenship.
And if it's not against the law, is it against the intent?
Those accounts do seem to be against the spirit of Keep Washington Working.
There's always a concern that we're not sure if we're gonna come back.
Jose did recently get his green card, but says that's no guarantee he can stay. He's calling on lawmakers to stop what he sees as a betrayal of Washington's sanctuary promise.
They're breaking families. They're tearing families apart.
I'm Tanya Iser in Dallas. We've uncovered how a troubled trucking company ended up transporting U.S. mail. Former drivers told us they weren't surprised by the deadly crash that happened here. The company's driver now faces criminal charges, but that company, they're still on the road.
Now to Texas, where a semi-truck hauling U.S. mail caused a horrific accident that killed 5 people, including an entire family. Our investigation out of Dallas found the trucking company falsified documents, skirted safety protocols, and violated Postal Service policy before letting that truck hit the road.
5 lives were lost, 4 from the same family on this stretch of interstate in Terrell. Police say the driver told them he fell asleep, and sources familiar with the investigation say the truck's registration, known as a cab card, was fake, and arrest warrants have been issued. We've also now confirmed that the truck was hauling a United States Postal Service load, and there are serious questions about whether that driver and Hope Trans, the company he was driving for, should have been hauling it at all.
The whole family died needlessly.
John Nohenick represents one of the family members.
There are so many issues with the company, their safety record. It's a matter of time before this happens.
We've learned Tennessee-based Covenant Logistics hired Hope Trans to haul that load. The truck began its journey at a postal distribution center outside Atlanta. Its next stop, Irving. The final destination is unclear. That route from Atlanta to Irving spans 800 miles, a 12-hour haul. But Postal Service rules are clear. Team drivers are required for trips over 500 miles. In this case, the driver was alone.
There was just so many red flags.
We spoke with a former Hope Trans driver who says he drove a Postal Service load from Atlanta to Phoenix alone, just weeks earlier in early June.
I next day shipped it from Atlanta all the way to Phoenix off of 3 hours of sleep.
The driver asked us to conceal his identity, but says he warned Covenant about Hope Trans a week before the crash.
He just kind of brushed it off. He didn't say anything about when I told him that I was the only one running that load.
Postal records available online show contracts with Covenant in excess of $40 million. In a statement, Covenant told WFA it was deeply saddened to learn of the tragic accident involving Hope Trans. We are cooperating with all law enforcement and other government agencies investigating this incident. The Postal Service responded saying, the Postal Service is aware of this accident, which is the subject of an ongoing investigation. The driver who made that Atlanta to Phoenix Postal Service run previously provided WFA the shipping records known as the Bill of Lading. It showed the departure date backdated from June 9th to June 8th.
A majority of their freight, that's how it goes. They change the pickup times. They push the pickup times back if you need more time.
A second former Hope Trans driver reached out after seeing our July 2nd report.
They don't care about rules. They just care about dropping off the load and making that money.
He provided us his employment agreement and shipping records for a load of pickles. A 2,200-mile trip from North Carolina to Utah. The original departure date, June 16th. The new one, backdated to June 15th.
All of a sudden you got 11 fresh hours.
And he says there was a code for asking for more drive time.
All I had to say was I need a cup of coffee, and they would give me more time.
Both truckers also provided us the same message instructing drivers to hide any original paperwork and noting that showing the original documents can lead to a major violation.
It really gets my blood boiling for this family, because if they were doing that, if Hope was doing that, they for sure didn't belong on the road.
If you were a major carrier, would you hire this company to transport loads?
Absolutely not.
Steve Bryan is CEO of Blue Wire. Blue Wire is like a credit report, but for trucking companies. It analyzes federal crash and inspection data, scoring more than 700,000 carriers nationwide. Hope Trans's Blue Wire score, 50.25, what Blue Wire calls a severe risk.
They also have multiple failures in a category we call safety culture.
According to inspection data collected by Blue Wire, the Postal Service was one of Hope Trans's top customers, whether they knew it or not. A 2024 audit from the U.S. Postal Service's Inspector General found this: the Postal Service did not always know who was authorized to transport mail on its behalf. At the time of the Terrell crash, Hope Trans listed a Tacoma address, but it was just a co-working space. Staff said they only got mail there. And that's a problem because FMCSA rules require trucking companies to list a real physical address. And within 2 days after the crash, Hope Trans changed its address in federal records to an Orlando apartment. Our sister station in Tampa went to that Orlando apartment. Wedged in the door, a business card from a federal investigator.
Have you ever seen the name Hope Trans, LLC at all?
No. Oh, that's a name you can remember, no.
Companies like this, they just do not care about the law.
Both truckers we spoke to say they only worked for Hope Trans for a few weeks. The company still has not responded to requests for comment.
If I kept driving for this company, this is how I was going to end up, just like that driver did.
For now, Hope Trans is still authorized to haul freight on the nation's interstates.
That does it for our first hour-long special of investigations from across the country. Our reporters are still digging for the truth and holding the powerful accountable. Check back for more investigative journalism that serves the public interest. I'm Susanna Frame. For all of us, thanks for watching.